Welcome back to the marketplace. Before we went on the break, we were talking about our situation public debt-wise, and we were asking where exactly is this money going? Engineer Kiteme, you are an engineer. Maybe could you or do you know of any significant development projects that have maybe taken place during the Kenya Kwanza regime?
Well, we know that Kenya Kwanza regime took over after the Jubilee government. We know that there was an accelerated investment, especially in infrastructure projects. We know the Mau Roads project. We have seen the expressway. We have seen initiatives, the Rironi to Mau Summit and all that. Those are very well documented. We have also seen either the same roads initially commissioned, recommissioned.
Right, and right. Interesting.
So we want to see substantively. And if the current government just continued with what was existing, or we have new commitments and undertaking. And we have seen a lot of words and commitment to do this, internal container depot and those kind of projects. And so perhaps, and what Kenyans are asking is, can we see this tangibly?
Right.
Because that is important. We are very much aware that investment in infrastructure is crucial for economic development. The moment you inject money into infrastructure, you spur some economic activity, people get jobs and all that. However, we kind of feel like we are trapped. We have to pay debt. Do we know where this debt went into? That is a key question everyone is asking. Because we can count only a few things. We have seen affordable housing, investment in affordable housing. And we know we have the levy and all that. But what other key and a big item can you talk about? Of course, we know there is an intention for SGR, continuation SGR and all that. But which other key, big thing can you talk about, apart from affordable housing and all that? And that's a question in everyone's lip.
Right. There is the intention, and we all have good intentions, but there is the action, and Kenyans are asking where exactly is the action. CPA, maybe if I could just ask you, the government has said that around 60 shillings of every 100 shillings within our budget is usually used to service some of our debts and to repay some of our debts as well. Where is the other 40 shillings? Where is it exactly?
In the expenditure.
Right.
So the other 40 shillings is what will be used to incur both recurrent and development expenditure. That is the whole reasoning. That if, for example, we collected, like last year we collected, I think the year 2023, 2024, we collected about 2.4 trillion. So 60% of that was used to repay debt.
Right.
The difference, the other 40%, is what was used to spend for both our recurrent and development expenditure. Plus now, the money we borrowed. Because the 60% is of the revenue we collect from our taxes. So when you take that one further, you then realize that the issues that we spoke about on sustainability, that we cannot spend 60% of our revenue to repay debt.
Right.
But because we're already in that situation, what we need to do is then to avoid further debt. I think it is only logical that way. But again, the conversation that we're having, and I like what engineer said, the conversation of asking, where did this money go in the first place? So that we establish that, let's establish that the 60% is it really what you should be paying, or it should be lower? So that kind of a discussion, I think, is timely.
Right. CPA, there were some notable figures who had said that Kenya doesn't even have a debt, and that whatever funds we are gaining are going into other, channels. We don't know of the spaces. However, we must ask ourselves, now that we already know that we are very bad managers of our debts and of our finances, what can we do differently?
First, I wouldn't be part of those ones who say we do not even have debt, because until we have a credible report, until we have a credible information that for sure we do not have debt, I wouldn't want to say that. Because year in, year out, we've been in this country and we've seen a budget presented to us which is deficit, which has a deficit. And because the expenditure highlighted on those budgets has been incurred, then the money must have been sourced elsewhere, and most likely from debt. So I won't be fast to say that we do not have debt. I will say we have debt. There may be inaccuracies in the recording, there may be exaggerations, but I think until we have a credible report on the same, I wouldn't be fast to say that.
While the president was doing away with the finance bill, he did mention that a lot of development projects will be stalled. We do have a lot of austerity measures. Now, there's the trickle-down effect of this to even engineers who are handling these projects. There are some projects that are going to be dilapidated by the time we're done with this year. There are people who are going to be out of jobs. Maybe, Engineer Kitema, can you just tell us what exactly do we or will we be seeing in the next year?
Yeah, it's not an interesting scenario when we deprive development funds. When everything we have is really recurrent expenditure, it's not an interesting scenario. I'll paint a picture of the 90s. In the 90s, you could hardly identify a single project. You could count like 7 projects going on around the entire country. The effect of that to us as engineers and generally the infrastructure industry was huge. So much that engineers stopped practicing engineers to go and become accountants. To go work with
this
KPMG,
is a crossover episode, clearly.
To go work for KPMG and CN Young and all that, because there were no projects. And the impact is felt to today. We have engineers who graduated in the 60s and all that, and by 90s, we were already registered and practicing. Then we have lost years, the 90s to about 2002. There were no projects. Engineers were not progressing and all that until after 2002, when now we revisited infrastructure of economic improvement. So the situation is dire. Our prayer is that we can unlock this as soon as we can, because when you're not doing projects, engineers are jobless. There is no way to earn their living, and either we lose them, and you're losing a number of them through brain drain. Which you don't regret so long as they go to find opportunities where they go. However, we need the best brains in this country. So unless really we unlock this issue of development financing, our industry is black. We do not want to imagine where we would be headed to, as it were.
Now, of course, there is the matter of, auditing some of these institutions and public agencies and even state departments. And the president did come up with a task force that, of course, now has issues with the courts. However, I must ask you, Bichanga, the Office of the Auditor General is the office that is supposed to be handling auditing, and the Law Society of Kenya did come out to say that there will be an overlapping of roles. What is your stance on this? Do you have faith in the OAG?
The Auditor General and most staff in that office are members of our institute.
Try to be independent.
I must say that we have trust in that office, no doubt about it. But I think the conversation is the other way around, that how many of us as a country use the reports from the Auditor General? I think for the longest time, we've not been very good users of those reports. And actually, when you read Section 32 of the Public Audit Act 2015, you will see that it is a requirement by the Auditor General to publish the audit reports 14 days, I think, after giving them to Parliament, because the primary users of those reports are Parliament. So once the Auditor General is done, they issue the reports to Parliament, then publish them. And they're all lying there in the OAG website. When you go there, there's a place reports, you will have all the reports there. Also, Parliament, once they receive, they are required to also publish them on their website.
Right.
So the reports are there. And over the years, we've had conversations, we've seen issues coming up, recommendations given.
Right.
But most of the time, recommendations in this country are never followed.
Right.
So I will advise that, one, the public, especially now that we are having all these conversations, let's be accessing these reports. And whenever possible, let's now talk about the recommendations given. How do we continue to implement the recommendations that have been given?
Right. Now, we will be going on a break. However, before even that, we will be looking at the way forward. In the financial year 2022-2023, according to the Public Debt Management Office, we borrowed around 740 billion Kenyan shillings. And in the financial year 2024-2025, we aim to borrow more than even 1 trillion Kenyan shillings to service some of the government projects and to service expenditure as well. We'll be right back in a few.